Hey everybody, it's me and Larry, and this is the not overly produced show. This is strategy for 2020. We're really talking about what's going on and organizing for candidates for 2020, looking at who we need to target. And before I turn it over to Larry to talk about a lot of the updates and information that we have, it's been an interesting week in trying to research and figure out this stuff. I want to remind everybody that you can look in the description of this video. All right, it's on YouTube. Look in the description and fill out the form. There's a form in there, a Google form to rate your House rep. Nobody's filled it out, and that's been an interesting learning lesson. I don't think anybody knows who their House rep is, so remember that. Also, this is a weekly event, and what we're trying to do here is get progressives in Oregon together to talk about how we win more progressive race, put more progressives in office in 2020. Okay, we need to start planning now. I guarantee you that the Democratic Party, resistance Democrats are planning right now for 2020. Okay, Republicans are planning for 2020. This is when we start. We need to unify that plan. You can come watch these live streams later. It's an open discussion. We encourage leadership from progressive organizations across all parties. If you believe in a progressive agenda, please, let's work together. We're creating a database to help organize and figure out who we want to target. And so thank you for being here. Anybody that's here, there's a few people in the audience, Jeffrey Pearson, John Warren, Metalhead. Thank you. And I'm going to let Larry start off with updates. We both got some interesting information to share with you about successes and failures in the revolution, right, Larry?
Indeed. So we're spending July and August examining the incumbents and comparing them against the criteria that we had developed earlier. And as John said, it's been a very interesting learning experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the districts, the House districts that surround the I-5 corridor tonight, and talk about the people who hold those offices. And then next week we're going to go through the I-5 corridor, which starts with the huge mass of districts in Portland, and then goes down to Eugene. And then the week after that, we'll be talking about the state senators that will be running for office in 2020. So whether you're watching this in the live stream or you're watching this recorded later, you're always welcome to go to the link to rate your legislators if you have some insights into them. And we're not looking for character assassination information. We're looking for the representatives that actually have a relationship with their constituency and listen to them and talk to them and meet with them and represent them well when they go to Salem. Right now, as John said, it's very interesting that no one has submitted anything, and then we realized that John didn't know who his was, and so it's probably true that many people don't know who their legislator is, and so that would be something that would be great to improve. Actually speaking with your constituency as opposed to the people who throw wads of cash at you.
Right, and let's also clarify, because this is something that I needed to understand, is that we're talking about, well, what Larry is looking for is House reps. This is Oregon House reps, not U.S. House, not U.S. Senate. This is Oregon House. So it's a different group of people, and it's a smaller set. It's weird. The House and the Senate here do weird stuff. Can you explain the different terms that they have and what we're actually targeting this time, Larry?
Yeah, well, it's interesting how the House or how the legislature in Oregon is different than how Congress is. So in Congress, you have senators where you have 2 senators from every state. So there's 100 senators because there's 50 states. And then you have 435 representatives that are allocated based on population. But in the Oregon legislature, you have the House representatives allocated by population. And then they have 2 House districts for every Senate district, and then you have a senator that is basically 2 House districts. So if we followed the congressional model, there would be 2 senators for every county, but there's not. There's a total of 30 senators, and each of those represent 2 districts. The House is elected every 2 years, so every 2 years, each of those goes up for election. So all the people we are talking to tonight are running this year, and they'll be running again in 2 years if they want to continue. The Senate is elected every 4 years, so half of them are being elected this year, and the other half is being elected in 2020. And as we've talked about previously, there are so many seats that are unopposed that the 2020 election is, in many cases, already over with, and so the 2018 election is over with, and that's why we're focusing on 2020.
Yeah, we need to do a better job of getting our shit together for 2020. We did all right in 2018, but we got better. And there's a lot of people here. I mean, 11. That's big for what we're doing here. And there's some people I haven't seen in a while. How you doing, Redden Economics? It's nice to see you. John Warren's here. Abdul Innis, nice to have you here. Schultze. What do you say? If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders rally tour across America, the Democrats can win both the House and Senate. I think that I bet they're planning some kind of a tour that will include her. I would have no doubt of that. Anyway, I wanted to point something out that you, before we move on, something that you said that I found very interesting. The Senate only re-ups every 4 years, right? House every 2, half of them. And you were telling me earlier that the House seems to be getting shit done, and then everything gets clogged at the Senate.
Yeah, so the legislation for stopping no-cause evictions passed in the House, died in the Senate. The National Popular Vote legislation passed in the House, died in the Senate. The Senate is known as the place where good bills go to die. So it was interesting going through the House members because there seemed to be just a much more effective and cohesive group of people inside the House, which explains why they get things done. And in the coming session, there's been some very interesting retirements from the Senate. So the Senate is also going to change and possibly become more effective in the 2019 session. But there's still some improvements that can be made there.
Cool. All right. And you're going to talk to us about these House reps? And
yes.
All right.
So what we'll do is we'll talk about each of them. What I found surprising is that there's so many people that I've never heard of before. There's 60 House representatives. The vast majority of them never get into the newspaper. We never hear about them unless they, do something that is newsworthy, like vote against their caucus and kill a bill. But that doesn't really happen in the House. So what we're talking about tonight are we're going to go around the state clockwise, starting at the top, and then briefly talking about each of the incumbents. And then if you happen to be in one of their districts or know of the legislator and you'd like to share your thoughts on the criteria that we've identified for assessing them, you're more than welcome to go out and fill out the form and share that with us. So are you ready to start, John?
Absolutely. Schultze, thank you so much. Says the Larry show's been growing on him. Appreciate that. And John Warren, I'm glad you're here. Sorry, life's been shit. A lot of people dealing with we got a lot of stress going on. These aren't exactly great times if you're woke. So, everybody, if you get a chance to take a break, take a breath, watch this, think about 2020, think about what we can do. So, yeah.
It can only get better. Almost.
I think it will get even worse first. I just want to remind everybody that we talked about this. We talked about Trump being a catalyst for what we needed, which was a unification, which is happening, but it's still going to I think we got worse coming, Larry. But you're right. It will get better, at least in the progressive movement. So we'll go there. I got to be a realist. Talk about Brad Witt, who you said was quite interesting because he's got a really weird district or weird area.
Yeah, so starting at the top of Oregon, basically in Columbia County, which is to the west of Multnomah County, is District 31 that's held by Brad Witt. Before the last census, his district was all of Clatsop County, and so we were dealing with him when we were trying to fight LNG. He was actually pro LNG. and that did not sit well with his district. And so I think he was quite happy when he got redistricted out of Clatsop County and over into Columbia. Brad's a good Democrat, and for the most part, he votes well, except for the LNG stuff. And the thing that he will always be remembered for is the House Bill 2700 in 2011 that he sponsored or co-sponsored that granted what is in effect eminent domain for the laying of natural gas pipelines across Oregon, and that was passed in a Democratic-dominated legislature. So that's the one litmus test that we have for just how far do you go in representing the people.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, it's not just voting in fossil fuel interest. We know we got climate change. We know it's a big problem. You're voting against the planet there, so we got to get rid of that guy. And the problem with his district, or why is it hard to find somebody to run against him?
It's really hard to find people to run against him. He carries around a big treasure chest of money, and so that scares away people. He's been in there for a long time, and so people just assume that he can't be beat. He does not even have an opponent he did not have an opponent in the primary or the general election, so he's going to be our representative come November.
Well, that sucks. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for being here. And he says, I am here for another Oregon 2020 planning episode, and I am fucking excited. So there you go, Larry.
Wow.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Okay, so jumping over Portland, because we're going to deal with Portland and the I-5 corridor next week.
All right.
We go to House District 52, which is Jeff Helfrich.
I got one real quick on this. How much do these guys get paid? It's not much, right? They don't get paid.
They get paid. Oh, it's horrible pay, which is one of our issues.
Right.
$24,000 a year.
It's better than what I'm getting now, but still, it's probably a lot more work. That's terrible. We need to fix that. Why wouldn't? I mean, Congress gives themselves raises all the time. Why wouldn't these people just pass through? We're going to pay ourselves great.
Oregon has this cheapskate reputation, and and it's kind of the same story that we hear with sales tax. Every time a sales tax bill comes up, it gets defeated, even though it's a more sensible way to do taxing. But people just don't trust the government with any kinds of changes, and so they've not increased. I mean, I do not have a memory of them ever increasing the salary of the House and the Senate, and it's because they don't even want to touch it. They have other ways of getting themselves funded, and they got so many other battles to fight. They don't want to go there. But I think we should do a ballot measure and basically triple the salary, which still would not pay them what they're worth, really.
No.
I think $75,000 a year for what they have to do during the legislative session is more than adequate. And then people with real jobs could actually consider taking a leave of absence because they would have enough income maybe to cover the mortgage and pay the grocery bills, which you cannot do on $24,000. You can't. People in Hillsborough, a huge population of highly skilled people, they just can't check out of their regular lives and go to Salem and work for $24,000 a year for a couple of years.
Right. And then to complicate that and to just add some truth to that, people that can run, like me, right? Because if I really wanted to, I probably could, don't really have the background. Well, I'm a smart guy. I could run. But I certainly don't have the resume or the clean closet that's required to run and put up the pretty optics against, an establishment candidate. And that's the other problem is we have to pull from the ranks, and then the ranks have a really hard time impressing mainstream, right?
Especially if they have no track record. So if you if you have never held even an appointed board position, it's hard to justify electing you to the Oregon Senate.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, who's next?
Jeff Helfrich. Never heard of him. Don't know what he does.
And
he's a Republican. This is one of those areas that if it's not blue, it's deep purple, and it's it could possibly flip, if not this time or next time.
Interesting. So you got part of Gresham in there, and then back on in there, Mount Hood.
Yeah, and it goes over to Hood River.
So just so everybody knows, I was really hoping to have data for you, a really pretty data set to look at on a nice map, and we all found out it's going to take a while. But we are building a map to represent these districts, who's where, whether it's red or blue, purple, whatever. And we got the mother load of information. Thank you, Ron, at DPO. So now it's just a matter of taking the time to plug in all the data. So soon you will have very beautiful information to look at that will really help us understand who these people are and whether we want to keep them or get rid of them. So, all right, moving on.
So moving up to Columbia, we have Daniel Bonham, another Republican. This time, his big population center is the Dalles, and then a lot of forest. And I've never heard of them. So, like we were saying earlier, we would love to hear from the constituents of these people. Does he meet with his constituents? Does he actually represent their interests in Salem, or is he all business and he represents business when he goes down?
Right, and we got to figure out a way to separate monies there. It's been a little confusing. We can talk about that later. He's a Republican. That's the other thing we decided, that if they're Republican, we just automatically know we have to do something about them, right? Greg Barreto.
Same story.
Where is
you know
that?
Anything about him? Please share.
I don't even know where that is. That's the middle of nowhere.
I believe that's the upper northeast corner.
All right. Anybody?
So that would be Wallowa County. There's some extremely progressive people in Wallowa County. The Wallowa County Democrats, hardcore burners.
Nice. Great. Hey, you guys, let's work together. Lynn Findley.
Yeah, so now moving down, this is House District 60. I believe he's newly appointed to this because of all the changes in the musical chairs that have been going on in Eastern Oregon. Huge district that goes all the way down to the southern border. So this would be probably Baker City, and then Ontario is probably the big population center in the south.
His face, he's saying, "Yeah, I won." He doesn't look very happy there. God, I have this job. Anyway,
it'll be interesting. So he's not a rabid Republican. So
no,
maybe he'll be a good guy.
Well, Republicans got nowhere to go but up, or left, I should say. Next.
So next is going inland a little bit. So Mike McLean, who's also the Republican House Caucus leader, has the area that's primarily Prineville, and then it goes down almost to Medford. So again, a lot of empty acreage. I do know that the House is better run, or the Republicans in the House is better run than it used to be. There was a period of time, and it was either 4 years ago or 6 years ago, where they were just being jerks, and they were insisting that every bill be read from beginning to end.
Oh, God.
When previously, it's like, you could read the bill on your own, you just pass the summary on the floor, but there's this rule that if someone wants it read in its entirety, you can do that. And so they were doing that on every bill. And that's when you start saying, Republicans, if that's the way you're going to behave, just get out.
So curious, if you knew your Robert's rules, would you be able to stop that shit?
It depends on what the House rules are. So the House rules would supersede Robert's rule, or Mason's rules, which is what they use in the legislature.
So our state uses that too, Mason's rules?
Yes.
Dang! So we got to learn those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an expensive book. It's like $249 as opposed to $39 for Roberts.
Well, of course, rich people need to know Robert or the Masons, right? It's price pointed out of poor people's hands.
So if you're from Prineville, let us know about Mike.
Yeah, and let us know if you want to run it. Just to clarify, when we say we're looking for candidates, which we are, we're planning on supporting you. We're going to build a a platform for you and hopefully support you. It won't include Learjets or limousines, but we will have a platform for you to run. That's what we're looking for here. So if you want to get rid of Mike, give us a info@uphillmedia.org. Werner.
So now we're down on the Southern Oregon border. So in the middle is this very interesting district, 56, Werner Reschke. You know anything about him? Please share.
Nice.
So then we get to Ashland, and of course we have a good Democrat there, Pam Marsh.
Do you know Pam?
I don't.
All right. Well, she looks happy.
She's I think she's new in this position, like in recently. I think this was held by someone else previously, but yeah, she looks like a good, solid, nice Democrat that I would trust my money with.
Notice we're just basing this all off people's looks. It's
Totally superficial, which is why we need you.
That's right. That's basic. Yeah. Pam, or anybody who knows Pam, love to interview you. Have you on Progressive Oregon and one of our shows just to get to know you, find out what you like, talk to you about what you're doing down there. So is this? You were talking about how it's really separate between the I-5 corridor and then everything in a U around it, right? Or
Yes.
yeah. So she's I-5 corridor.
No, well, I mean, she's sort of. Well, I mean, the big benefit there is that they've got Ashland, which is this, extremely blue island in a sea of red, and so that's how that's why we always get progressives elected there. But the core I-5 core, and they're separated from like Eugene by Douglas County, which has tended to be all Republican representatives. The really blue part of the I-5 corridor is Portland to Eugene.
All right then. Schultze appreciates our hard humor. Just
So just up from Pam's district is Dwayne Stark, House District 4. It's really interesting. He only gets the eastern part of Grants Pass, and then a lot of acreage, and the western part of Medford. So I don't even know where it looks like they cut out most of Jacksonville. So I don't know where he gets his population center.
That's weird. That's a weird breakup there. And he's a Republican.
It's starting to look like a Rorschach test.
Yes.
So Dwayne fans, let us know how Dwayne's doing. Because we can't oppose everyone, and so we need to prioritize which ones that we go after. And so if there's someone who, like Saul Esquivel, we tried to get him out for years, and he finally just retired. That was someone who is just has been just a regressive representative from the day he got in there, and we've always wanted him out, and we could never mount an effective campaign. The Saul Esquivels are the ones that we're really trying to ferret out.
Right, and so after we figure the Democrats we need to target, we know all the Republicans we need to target, but we have to prioritize the Republicans we need to target because we can't target them all. That's what you're really saying. And we're having a hard time coming up with criteria because it's just about everything. We really have to narrow it down. Maybe Dwayne can be cut some slack because he's a Stark. I don't know. Thrones.
So House District 3, Carl Wilson.
Right.
He's moving a little bit more over to the west.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. He's got the other part of, sort of the other part of Grants Pass.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anybody, you know anything about him?
Nope. The next one we do know something about, Cedric Hayden. So Cedric, along with his friends Saul Esquivel and Julie Parrish, sponsored the repeal of the medical tax earlier this year in January. They caused a $4.5 million ballot measure, and they lost. So they squandered, Republicans squandering $4.5 million. And he was one of the sponsors of that bill.
That's their version of resistance.
So, so Cedric would pop to the top of my list of someone to get out of there. He has a really good challenger. It's just that will she be able to prevail in a predominantly Republican district?
Okay, so that's a criteria right there. Is Republicans that have pushed forth really shitty bills, like compared to regular Republican bill. I don't know.
Wasted public funds.
There you go. I like that. That's a much better way to look at it. Wasted public funds. There's got to be a grand total for each one. Caddy McCown?
Yeah. So now we get over to the coast. Good Democrat, Caddy McCune.
All right.
So now we're continuing up the Oregon coast clockwise. Next, we get the next Democrat, David Gomberg. And so this is the district just to the west of Salem. And that comes to the end of the ones that we looked at this week.
Well, that was quick.
So no obvious Democrats to target. Certainly one or two possibilities on the Republican side that we need to find a good, effective challenger if they survive this election. So they're incumbents, so they got a leg up already. See if they make it to next time, and hopefully we can find some people to run against them, and then we can support their campaigns and make them viable candidates so they can get elected.
Yes. All right. So,
any comments from the audience?
Yeah, but none of them I don't think have anything to do with what we're talking about. I really don't know where Jingy and Schultz have gone here with the Bat Country and Pope comments. Let me know if it was relevant. Let me know because I missed it, guys.
So clearly we have a parallel universe going on tonight.
We do. They're having a fun time. There was some other, there was some other good news and other stuff that you had discovered that you were going to talk about. What was it? When you talked about it.
Well, just so in putting together tonight's presentation, I did next week's as well, and so what was most impressive about the entire batch of 50 that we were assessing, there's around 10 seats where the incumbent's not running again for whatever reason. And so there's about 50 seats that will be incumbents in 2020. But I came away from that analysis actually being quite impressed with the Democrats that we have representing us in the party. And I think that is reflected in the progressive legislation that they've been passing. So the other thing is not only are they good people, they're also diverse. So it's not completely white males as it was 20 years ago. There's young people, there's African Americans, there's an Indian American, an American Indian, excuse me, a couple of Hispanics, starting to look like the population in general. So it was really encouraging to see that mix inside the house.
Awesome. Yeah, it's. I didn't expect you to say that. I was thinking that we really had a lot of work to do, and there was you said there were less Republicans out in the CD2 realm, right? Than you thought. Or they're less powerful now?
Well, excuse me. The Democrats are one seat away from having a supermajority. I think they've got something like 36, which means that there's 24 Republicans, and
that's cool.
And so we're only talking about 50 of the 60 because 10 of them seem to have been are not running again for whatever reason. So there's actually not very many Republicans that we'll be talking about tonight and next week.
But still, that's cool. If we can just hold the line, which you would think that would be easy to do, and add a Dem, and this is to the House? Let me make sure I'm clear.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. This
not only add a Dem, but add progressive Dems.
Well, right. Resistance Dems don't cut it. Right. We got to stop that. And that's a narrative we want to push, everybody. Let them own the term resistance. They like that term. Let them own it. You don't make any progress with resistance. That's the two different Dems we got going on there. So, that it? Anything? By the way, Jingy says, great fucking fun with Rorschach district tests. So that's not a bad combo, like Pictionary with your Congress people.
I can't wait to show them House District 22 next week.
Yeah, what are we going over next week?
So next week we have the I-5 corridor. So there's, the since the House seats are distributed based on population, there will be just a ton of them in the Portland metro area. So very dense set of districts in Portland, and then we go down to Salem, and then we go down to Eugene, and this is the blue I-5 corridor that everyone talks about. And if there's any Republicans in the mix, it means that they've got like a corner of their district inside the I-5 corridor, but they also have a lot of acreage. So it's really surprising how they're being pushed back into the wilderness almost, and marginalized.
We have a lot of work to do, and we're just getting started here. So exciting stuff. Looking forward to next week, learning the information. I mean, if anybody wants to join us on the research team or help us with this, info@uphillmedia.org. And if you want to be a part of the discussion and you're part of a progressive group or organization, we're looking to work with you. We have a lot of data. It's just a question of getting it in a form that is useful to us, and so really appreciate your help in that regard. Thank you guys for being here. We had 12
Yep.
for a
Remember,
while.
go to advancementofdemocracy.org if you want to submit the stuff. We're also putting out a number of videos, so the video library is building every week. You can go in out there and watch things. We have the 3 conversations with Europe, the one on healthcare, the one on education, and the one on campaign finance on the website for you to watch. So lots of really interesting stuff.
There you go. And I just cut up the last core principles. Larry's done 2 of the Robert's Rules of Order for the Revolution series, and then I cut them into segments. The latest one is on core principles of parliamentary procedure. Please watch those, join, get involved if you want. Those rules are how we can start to control meetings, or at least make sure our rights are not being screwed with at these organizational meetings. Really cool stuff.
Coming up next Sunday in the morning at 10 o'clock, we have Progressive Oregon show. We have an interview that we did with Jeff Beals, who was the progressive Bernie Democrat who ran in House or U.S. Representative seat 19 in New York, and was featured in the June 22nd production of This American Life. I'd recommend go listening to This American Life first and get the whole backstory, and then watch the conversation that we had with Jeff. It was really interesting talking to someone who came in, very bright guy, very motivated. All of his values are in the right place, and it just didn't work out ultimately.
Yeah, and this is what you'll hear is the same story we're hearing from a lot of progressive Dems, and how they were treated by resistance Dems and the establishment, and the emergence of the resistance Dem trying to look like a progressive, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to identify a few of them here in Oregon and figure out what the hell we do. Do we push them left? Do we? I mean, do we primary them? I don't know what to do there, but he was really dicked around. It's a good interview. Larry did a great interview. You guys should watch that. And we'll be playing it. I've got it unlisted on the site now. But we'll be playing that on Sunday. Join us there.
And the This American Life version is called "It's My Party and I Will Run If I Want to."
There you go. Message to Tom Perez: if the progressives are the future of the party, you might want to start supporting them. Just a thought. I know, it's crazy. Crazy thought. John Warren, the data that we're working on, so we're working with Excel sheets and CSVs, the raw data. Most of it's that way. A lot of it's hand entry from some of the websites. Just can't pull the data down any other way. But we're using Data Basin, and Justin Bryce, who is a geographical information systems specialist, is helping us on volunteering his time to help us use Data Basin to plug this information in. And once we build the layer sets, we're going to make it open to the public. This is going to be Well, most of it will be open to the public. We're going to have some private sets. It's going to be like for the war room, and figuring out what we're doing. But the bulk of the information will be open to the public. So that's it. And thank you, John. Glad. I did pick a song to go out with, Larry, if we got nothing else.
We don't, so let's go for it.
All right. And I might as well plug this. Join us Monday. So Sundays, Larry does 2 shows. We got the Robert's Rules. Before that, we got Progressive Oregon. Monday, We the People starts back up after a short break, mostly because nobody would respond to us and they were busy. But Mike McCabe, who is some just like crazy, I don't know what's going on with his last video. This is like the most watched in terms of audience retention We the People we've ever had in the history of We the People. And I've had like Randy Bryce and Portia Bolger and all sorts of big names. It's just, I don't know what he actually said. I'm looking forward to coming back and go, whatever you said, just say it again, because people really like it. He's running for governor of Wisconsin. He's a progressive. He's green. He's smart. He's articulate. And he's probably running against $1 gazillion. So join us for that on Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific, and show your support for a true progressive who is running for governor of Wisconsin. Yeah. Thank you, Larry, for doing all this work. I appreciate it.
See y'all next week.
We're going out with something that is a suggestion of Marcus. Marcus is always pulling me these German songs or these, European bands. And this one is Die Toten Hosen, which in German means the dead pants. And this song is just called Viva la Revolution. This is the English version. And okay, so I wasn't a teenager thinking about revolution in my country. I didn't woke until, Bernie Sanders. But when Bernie started, the concept of revolution was really very like, yeah, I get it. He wants us to get involved with politics and blah, blah, blah. Now it's much more, it's real. It's visceral. It's hard. I think we get what he means now, and we're growing up, we're maturing, and we recognize what we need to do. And we put our lives on hold in some places. We work our jobs. We do what we need to do to survive. And then we do what we need to do for the revolution, because we know that we have a fascist regime that we have to get rid of. And that takes us being involved in our democracy. That's what this song is about. So thank you all for being here. Enjoy the tune.
In the traffic jam before you clock in for your job. Every day plays out the same way. Then you clock out and go home. And every night you watch the same old shite on the same old TV shows. You were once a teenage rebel, and you told yourself back then you'd never let yourself be caged in by the old establishment. In the bars and the marches and protest groups and every anarchist meeting, you were the first to put your hand up and shout down with everything. Viva la revolution, the revolution lives on. Viva la revolution, long live the revolution. You have your Che Guevara poster, your books by Marx and Mao, and you got yourself a new haircut to help bring the system down. You dress up for